Hey, what is going on, folks? My name is Hellbent, and this is a continuation on creating flat walls and ceilings in the game Astroneer. If you'd like to know how to create flat walls, I'll leave a link to the video where I discuss that. Many of the things that we're going to be talking about in this overlap that, so you might be able to get by with just this video. If you would like to learn more about walls afterwards, you can check out the other one that's in the description. Before we begin, you have to know about the grid line in order for you to create flat surfaces. So the game takes place in a cube. We're on a sphere that's inside of that cube. That cube has these grid lines in it, and this is how the terrain attaches to the world. So what we need to do in order to create flat surfaces, we need to align ourselves with those grid lines, or we need to align the terrain with those grid lines. If I cut into the rock here, I can make out some of the grid lines, so I can see that I have parallel lines running from this left to right, about a foot apart, so they're parallel about a foot apart. But I also can see that I have lines that are running straight up and down, roughly parallel, roughly every foot apart. There's also two other lines, one going this direction in the diagonal and then this direction in the diagonal. And this is the mesh that our terrain is going to attach itself to. Now, if you try to, in order to create a flat surface, you actually have to be lined up with that grid line. So for example, I can make a flat surface along this line right here where it connects the brown with the blue, but if I was to try to do it halfway, let's say halfway between these two lines here, it's never going to happen. I have to be right on top of that grid line. So how do you do that? Well, it's really easy. All you have to do is just go to a place. Now I've already done this a couple of times, so just to try to get the video down under 10 minutes, but let me try to find a spot that I haven't flattened yet. Okay, so I know it's hard to see, but this area out here hasn't been flattened yet. None of this has been flattened yet. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a piece of ground that runs roughly the same direction as those lines, so right about there. Now I don't know how far I am. Like, I don't know if I'm halfway to the next grid line or 3/4 of the way to the next grid line. I don't know. So the trick I do use is, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my flattening tool, and I'm just going to start tapping in a small circle repeatedly. Tap, 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 tap in a small circle. This is going to deflate the ground, make it raise a little bit, lower a little bit, go on this angle, that angle, and gradually, as I'm tapping it, it's going to slowly start to work its way either up to the next grid line or down to the next grid line. So that's all I'm going to do, is I'm just going to start tapping, and I'm going to start moving in a small circle over the same area. So let me bring it over a little closer. So I'm just going to go in a small circle, and I'm going to do this for 10 seconds or so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop tapping, I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to spread it out a little bit to see if I actually got it on that next grid line. Now I know it's really hard for you to see. It's hard for me to see too because of the light. But I can see a line right here. Let me see. Maybe a tether will help you. I can see, you can sort of make out a polygon there, you can sort of make out a polygon there. So because I can see those polygons, I know that even though it looks really flat, it's not. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to start tapping and going in a small circle. Just so you know, the recording software really slows down my computer, so the frame rate's really, really low right now. There's nothing I can do about it, so just you have to bear with it, or you can get lost. That's your choice. Okay, so I tapped again. I'm just going to smooth that out, and hopefully this time I have a flat surface. Okay, so I'd say yes, I have a completely flat surface now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this flat surface to create another flat surface on top of it, and as soon as I have two flat surfaces that are on top of each other, I can get all the other angles from that. So this little trick I have is the height of those parallel lines, so the next level above this one, so I have a flat surface here, the next one that sits on top of that, it happens to line up with the white band in the tether. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flat surface, put a tether down on it, pull out my tool, and raise the ground until it's approximately at that band. And then I'm going to use that same tapping trick again, where I just tap in a small circle, and this is gradually going to raise the ground or lower it, if the case may be, until it's there. So I tapped for a little bit, and then I'm going to smooth it out. And that looks like I'm perfect. Okay. There's this rule that the polygons or the mesh follows. If I have two flat surfaces that are only separated by one grid line or one parallel grid space, so the height, this level up to this level, this thing that's connecting them, this brown part that's connecting it, it's only one grid space. As long as I have the flat ground and the flat surface up there, the thing that connects them is also automatically flat. So I can use this. This is now, if I want a ramp, for example, I can now use this connecting surface to create a completely smooth ramp. So now I have a 45-degree angle. Okay. That's not what we're going to be talking about, though. Here, we're going to be talking about how can I use, knowing this stuff, how can I use this to create a ceiling or more floors without having to do the whole tether thing and finding all those levels. Well, what we can do now is, because I can create this 45-degree ramp, I can create two of those, and the thing that connects it, so if I connect two 45-degree angle ramps going in different direction, it'll create new angles that are perfectly smooth. So let me do that. So I need to make sure that my ramp is going in the compass directions. In other words, I end up with another slope. But just take off your tool, put your cursor over yourself, and you see the compass underneath you. So I have this line right here that's moving north to south. And I'm just going to clean up this edge here to give myself another line that's moving east and west. So I'm going to bring out my tool again, and I'm just going to cut into this, make a line. Okay, so I have this ramp here now that's moving east and west. I'm going to grab this and raise it up into the ground. Now this works both ways. If I wanted to create a down into the ground, I could do it into the ground as well. It works the exact same way, but it'll be easier for you to see it if I just do it into the sky for this one. So that's the way I'm going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this ramp with this ramp here, and the edge that they connect is going to create like a step, like stairs. If you go too far over on this side, it's going to cause it to bulge out on this side. So just go back over to a flat part that you have over here and just clean that up. Make sure everything snaps together really nice. When you get it onto the grid line, it tends to want to snap onto it. So just make sure if you go too far over on one side, just clean it back up on the other side. And you're just going to go create as many steps as you want, however high you want to go. So let's say if I want to create a floor that is way up here. Alright, so let's say if I want my next floor to be right here. This surface here is completely flat. This surface right here is completely flat. This is the surface that's connecting them. So it is also completely flat, and it just happens to lie parallel with the ground. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to extend this out. And here's my next floor. Okay, so this surface right here is completely flat. The edge, yes, I know the edge isn't, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the edge. We're talking about the surface here. Okay, now what if I don't want this to be a floor? Like, what if I don't want this to be another level? What if I actually wanted this to be the ceiling of my surface down here? So we need one more step to turn this into a ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down 3 steps. So I'll clean this up a little bit so you can actually see it. So I'm going to go to the 3rd step down. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go to this step right here. And all I'm going to do is go underneath that floor that we had created. And it's going to evaporate all the rock except for a tiny, tiny thin slice, like a pixel thick. So if I look right here, I know it's hard to see because it's only a pixel thick, but that part right here is now only 1 pixel thick. And if I come up to the underside of it, it's a completely smooth surface, and all I have to do is extend it out. And this is my ceiling. And I can join this with my walls, and that's it. And that is how you create ceilings. I'll do a quick demo for walls as well, so I'll save you a little bit of time if you don't want to have to go and watch creating walls. So let's say if I want to create a wall, let's say I want the wall to run right here. Wherever I want that wall to run, so let me actually, what you're going to do is you're going to take that same technique with the tether, right, and you're going to get your 2nd level. So I have the floor, I have my 1 step up, and I'm going to decide where I want that wall to lie. I'm going to smooth out the edges, get a nice straight line. So let's say if I want my wall to be right here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 45-degree angle, I'm going to drag that into the ground, make it nice and big because I'm going to have to break part of it, make sure it's nice and smooth. Then I'm going to come back up to the top, come over the edge 1 space, and then I'm going to clean up this fat that it created. I'm going to get it to snap. I'm going to grab this new surface, and that's my wall. And then where it joins the floor and the ceiling, it creates this little trim. So now I'll just bring this up to the ceiling. And I'll extend the ceiling out. And then I can just use the same trick to create my other walls. And that's it. Hope you learned something. Peace.